Hey folks, this is Leaf, and today we'll be talking about the massive announcements in this year's The Game Awards, featuring upcoming games and projects from industry leaders such as CD Projekt Red, From Software, Gearbox, EA, Sega, and so much more. This year's announcements are filled with heavy hitters of new sequels from massive game franchises to brand new IPs from well-known studios, and with a distinguished lineup of upcoming games, it seems that we have a lot of gaming to look forward to in the future. First up, The Witcher 4 has finally been announced to absolutely no surprise to anyone. News and rumors about CD Projekt Red's new Witcher project had been circulating around the internet as early as 2022, being teased as a start of a new trilogy with new gameplay mechanics and just generally a much bigger game compared to the studio's previous titles, particularly bigger than The Witcher 3 and even Cyberpunk 2077. And that seems to be the case. The new cinematic trailer for The Witcher 4 showcases a much older Ciri as the new protagonist. Now, the new trailer suggests that she may have undergone the trial of the grasses at some point and is now a fully fledged Witcher, as we see her with yellow eyes and even drinking one of the Witcher's tonics, which I assume is a cat potion. Ciri being an actual Witcher now is a point of contention for the community, where some people are arguing that Ciri going through the trial doesn't really make any sense, but still, we've yet to see anything substantial, so it's best to leave our expectations for later. CD Projekt Red's Witcher trilogy is an absolutely massive part of gaming, and with Geralt's journey coming to a close in Witcher 3, I am very curious and excited to see what CD Projekt Red has in store for the franchise. Next up is FromSoft's brand new standalone Elden Ring title. Yes, you heard that right. A new Elden Ring game, not an update, not a DLC, but an entirely new entry to the Elden Ring franchise. Elden Ring Night Reign is a new standalone co-op action survival game that's pretty much just Elden Ring, but is focused on having you fight eldritch monsters with your friends more than anything else. This was a genuinely big surprise from the Dark Souls creators, as they just released a game-sized DLC for Elden Ring this year, which seems that the studio has cut off the brakes for making games, but I'm not one to complain. Looking at the trailer, Elden Ring Night Reign seems to be a Monster Hunter style spin-off set in the Elden Ring universe. Aside from that, we still know little about this new FromSoft game and have a ton of questions that only time will answer, like, is the game gonna be open world? Is this a roguelike? Is it canon? And so many other questions, but for now, we're gonna have to move on to the next.
I need your help.
The creators of Ico, The Last Guardian, and Shadow of the Colossus teased their new upcoming project in the Game Awards, this time teaming up with Epic Games to deliver their next original IP. Team Ico, now known as Gen Design, used to make games for PlayStation, and while their projects can be counted with only one hand, every time they release a game, it always becomes a sleeper hit or a cult classic. The teaser led to more questions than answers, as its 2-minute runtime only gave us a look of this silhouette of something covering the horizon line and a massive mech suit, but aside from that, everything else is left to your interpretation.
Stop licking.
The developers of It Takes Two, the popular co-op game about marriage problems, are on track to release yet another 2-player, mind-bending, controller-breaking, and potentially friendship-ending co-op game. Split Fiction is an upcoming sci-fi, and I guess fantasy adventure where characters Mio and Zoe enter a virtual reality made from their own fantasies. Due to an accident, Mio and Zoe's fantasies get fused into each other, and now they have to escape the worlds that their minds have created to stop an evil CEO from stealing what's rightfully theirs. Much like It Takes Two, Split Fiction seems to be yet another puzzle platformer where you have to work with another player to solve an enormous amount of puzzles and challenges and see the game together through the very end. And for the best part, I'll just let Joseph do the talking.
And as always, with the Friends Pass, you only need to buy one copy of the game to play it with your friend online. That's what Hazelight is about. No loot boxes, no microtransactions, and no bullshit. You just get the game.
Hinterland Studios' The Long Dark was one of the most talked about survival games during the survival game craze of the 2010s. Survival was a genre synonymous with zombies at the time, but The Long Dark went for a more grounded theme instead. And now the studio has revealed that they've been working on a sequel to The Long Dark titled Black Frost. But something I find really weird is that the visuals for the trailer of Black Frost oddly looks like those from a side-scroller game, like what you'd see in, say, This War of Mine. See, The Long Dark features first-person gameplay, and it would be really weird to see a sequel suddenly change the series' presentation. And if they don't go for the side-scroller route, then it's gonna be weird that they've teased these side-scroller visuals only for the actual game to not have any of it. Still, aside from this little teaser, Hinterland Studio hasn't really said anything about this game yet, so only time will give us more of the details. Now, this announcement is the one that I am most personally invested in. You see, Borderlands 2 introduced my younger self to the universe of Borderlands, and Gearbox had me hooked ever since. It's now been kind of a ritual of mine to play through the entire series every couple of years, so you can imagine how stoked I was when they first teased Borderlands 4, and how excited I am now that they've finally shown some of the game. In the trailer, we get to see the new conflict brewing around Pandora and a new cast of interesting characters thrown around in the mix. We also get a glimpse of the new Vault Hunters, and let's just say they're, proper. And aside from Zane and Claptrap, we don't really see any other familiar faces in this trailer, but either way, I guess it's finally high time for a new Borderlands, but we still have to wait and see if this entry lives up to the name. Next is a DLC for one of the most popular fighting games in the market, Tekken 8. This time around, Clive Rosefield of Final Fantasy XVI joins the King of Iron Fist tournament. In its previous installment, Tekken 7 also reeled in the protagonist of Final Fantasy XV, Noctis. I really appreciate how good of a job Tekken does at incorporating these guest characters into the game. Noctis in Tekken 7 played exactly how you'd think he'd be when put into a fighting game, and that seems to be the case with Clive as well. In another fighting game announcement, a new Virtua Fighter project has officially been announced, but what's more surprising than the return of the franchise is the studio behind its new iteration. Helming the project is Ryuga Gotoku, the studio behind the Yakuza and the Like a Dragon games. While the studio started their fame with the ever-so-popular beat-em-ups of the Yakuza games, the studio have recently steered the series into a turn-based JRPG in the more recent Like a Dragon entries. So color me surprised that they're once again working on an action fighting game, which just goes to show the talent behind this company, and I am definitely looking forward to what they're cooking in this new Virtua Fighter. And if you think that the Like a Dragon studio is satisfied with Virtua Fighter, then you are completely mistaken. RGG is juggling its Virtua Fighter development with a brand new concept of a brand new IP. Project Century looks like if you take Yakuza into the 1900s and sprinkle in some of that Way of the Samurai vibes. Aside from the teaser, we really don't know anything much about the project, but considering it's an RGG game, I think we'll be in good hands. Saber Interactive, the developers of Space Marine 2, has set out to revive a cult classic franchise. Turok was a series of shooter games back in the early 2000s. The original Turok games were basically Quake, but with dinosaurs. In 2008, Propaganda Interactive took a gander at rebooting the franchise, and that was the last time we've seen or heard about a Turok game. And now it seems that the world is ready for another go at the Turok franchise, with Saber Interactive leading the charge for Turok Origins. And compared to the previous Turok games that came before, Turok Origins seems to lean in closer towards the sci-fi theme, seeing that the characters in the trailer look like tribal hunters sporting what looks like nanotech armor, which kind of reminds me of Warframe. Not gonna lie. But the heart of the game looks like it still lies in the idea of fighting ancient dinosaurs, where encounters start from fairly basic dino encounters, but eventually devolves into the area of what the hell is even that. No, this isn't a new update to Techland's Dying Light 2, but a completely new entry to the series. Dying Light the Beast is a standalone game that marks the return of the original's protagonist, Cal Crane, which some would argue to be the true sequel to the first game. The game takes players to the once popular tourist destination, Castor Woods, where after 13 years of enduring relentless experiments, Cal Crane escapes and hunts down his captors to seek retribution. I kind of understand why they decided to turn this part of Cal Crane's journey into a spin-off. As suggested by the trailer, he is no longer an ordinary human and we get to play with his newfound abilities in this game, something that would go against the grounded parkour approach of the mainline Dying Light series. But honestly, I kinda want to see more of these experimental entries from Techland, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a Dying Light game. One of my favorite PlayStation franchises of my childhood is finally getting some love after years of silence. Onimusha Way of the Sword is a brand new entry to the Onimusha series from Capcom, and based on the trailer, the series basically returns to form and will let players battle dangerous Onis in Japan's Edo period. Based on the details provided in the game's website, players will fight through bloodbaths in intense swordplay action, explore a twisted version of the historic Japanese capital of Edo-era Kyoto, and battle against monstrosities from the underworld. Onimusha is one of the niche franchises that I've been wanting to so desperately return, and while we have to wait for at least a whole year before we get our hands on the game, it just honestly feels great, especially with how Capcom has been treating their IPs in recent years. Neopol is continuously expanding their DNF or Dungeon and Fighter universe with games like their fighting game DNF Duel, and this time around, a brand new premium Souls-like The First Berserker Kazan. And while the cinematic trailer looks super epic, the actual visuals of the game are a far cry from the realistic carnage that they presented in this one. But hey, maybe they upped the graphics since the gameplay reveal 5 months ago, who knows. But regardless if they're going for an anime aesthetic or a more realistic one, alternatives to the Souls-like or just the action RPG genre is always a welcome addition to the sphere of video games. What do you do when you have a very successful franchise with a very loyal fanbase? Capitalize on it, of course, and that's exactly what Sega is doing with their Sonic property, pumping out new Sonic games on almost a yearly basis now, and the best part is that they're actually really good games. Sonic Racing has been a staple of the series for a very long time, so with a streak of successful releases, it was just about time that Sega put out another entry to their Sonic Racing lineup, and it seems that Sonic Racing Crossworlds is exactly that. The announcement teased the game by revealing Shadow and his kart, but that's literally all we get for now, so stay tuned for more info. Hangar 13 is back at it again, upping their game with yet another cinematic experience with a brand new Mafia game. This time, taking players back to the origins of organized crime in 1900s Sicily. This marks the start of a new crime saga for the acclaimed Mafia franchise, as Mafia the Old Country features an all-new story with a brand new cast of characters set in the Mafia universe. The game seems focused on perfecting the ways of linear, narrative-driven gameplay that is perfect for fans looking to engross themselves in an unfamiliar world of danger and intrigue. The Mafia trilogy had been one of the best narrative-driven games of its time, and it seems that Hangar 13 isn't done telling stories for the Mafia series just yet. This game is definitely one of the most interesting games announced in the Game Awards. Dispatch is a narrative-driven superhero comedy made by Ad Hoc Studio, a game studio founded by former Telltale developers. A little story about me, I was a huge sucker for the Telltale games back in the day, and The Wolf Among Us is still one of the games that I hold in the highest regard. And to see a studio take up the mantle to create the next stage of visual storytelling is a pretty welcome sight. And the production for this game is absolutely actually no joke. Just with the animations showcased in the trailer, the game already looks like an interactive movie you'd see in Netflix, but it's more of a game and less of a movie, if that even makes sense. Anyway, if the animation quality doesn't convince you, then this game also has a pretty serious cast of talents for their voice acting, including well-known industry names such as Breaking Bad's Aaron Paul, The Batman's Jeffrey Wright, and even well-known internet celebrities like Jacksepticeye and everyone's favorite commentator, Moist Critical.
You gonna eat those Twinks?
That's not what they're... You know what? Help yourself.
If the mission is preserving and evolving the legacy of well-beloved classics, then we can always put our trust in Capcom to do the job. One of the biggest surprises in the announcements is that the cult classic Okami will soon begin development under a newly formed studio under Capcom called Clovers. The studio is led by the renowned developer Hideki Kamiya, serving as the director for this project. Hideki Kamiya used to work for Capcom's Clover studio that has now been defunct, then he moved on to work for Platinum Games until 2023, until he returned to Capcom to revive Clover Studio under the new designation, Clovers. The old Clover Studio was known for making games such as Beautiful Joe and Okami, and I guess the best way to revive a studio is to revive one of the biggest names in gaming history. Last but not the least, we got a surprise announcement from Naughty Dog. Is it a new Last of Us? Is it a new Uncharted game? Well, no. The studio has announced that they're working on an entirely brand new IP, this time taking their stories through the stars into the depths of space. Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet is Naughty Dog's latest sci-fi adventure game that is currently in development for the PS5. The trailer introduces Tati Gabrielle in this spacefaring adventure aboard a ship that looks like it came from No Man's Sky, and it seems that our main character this time is a bounty hunter hunting for marks across the galaxy. The very fact that this is a Naughty Dog game already makes me excited, and I can't wait to see more of what they have in store for this one. That's about every major announcement in this year's The Game Awards. I can imagine these announcements making a lot of gamers really happy, and there's definitely a lot of interesting games in here to look forward to. I, for one, am eagerly anticipating Borderlands 4, so if you have a game in this video that you're interested in, make sure to let us know down in the comments. For more gaming news and reviews, make sure to subscribe to TMG, because you can never have too much gaming. This has been Leaf, and I'll see you guys on the next one.